In this project, my group and I will be discussing the barred owls versus spotted owls, how an invasive species can profoundly shape an ecosystem. Now to begin, the Northwestern United States represents a unique balance of organisms living within the ecosystem, with a rigid structure of predation. In the 1900s originally, the area was dominated by the spotted owl. The spotted owl is a bird that lives in dense forests and is usually a sign that ecosystems are thriving. This is because there is a threat to the spotted owls in the US, the barred owl. Ever since the 1900s, barred owls have begun to push into the territory originally inhabited by the spotted owls, and since the spotted owls were so territorial, this means that the spotted owl numbers have drastically reduced. As illustrated in this image, the spotted owls only inhabit a small area in California, Washington, and Oregon. However, the barred owl is encroaching on the territory from Canada to the north. More broadly, this means, as many scientists like David Wines assert, that the biodiversity of the ecosystem could also decrease. We discussed in detail in class about how predation can affect biodiversity in an ecosystem.
To dive more deeply into the problem at hand, we'll establish what effects the barred owl is having within the ecosystem. The barred owl is an invasive species, which according to the USDA, is an animal not native to the ecosystem whose introduction causes environmental harm. The implementation of invasive species is a major cause of biodiversity loss, and this can partially be seen within the spotted owl population as stated in the PNAS research article, as there was a sharp decline in areas without barred owl removals, averaging a 12.1% decrease in the population of the spotted owl per year. Additionally, the presence of the barred owls reduced the spotted owl population mobility in the areas in which they were already occupying. Barred owls are larger, more aggressive, and more adaptable in nature than the northern spotted owls, and due to this, they are able to displace spotted owls, disrupt their nesting, and compete with them for food. This is shown through the experiment with the removal process of barred owls, as it showed that they did reduce fertility and survival rates of the new spotted owl population.
The spotted owl species, also known as the northern spotted owls, are now having to face a fatal reality due to logging efforts, global warming, and the invasive species known as the barred owls that have led to the ultimate demise of these owl species. Since the year 1990, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have claimed these species as endangered. As previously mentioned, the barred owl species possess a great danger to the spotted owl species. Per David Weens and Katie M. Duggar's research paper, we found that invasive species possess great dangers to biodiversity globally and have catastrophic events on the natural resources around the world. This is why the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service decided to implement a limited experimental removal of the barred owl species with lethal injection of a 20-gauge needle using a shotgun. The results did work, and a 0.2 decrease in the decline of the spotted owl species was noted, contrasting with a 12.1 decrease where this limited removal was not implemented.
It's true that the solution to the issue of the decrease in spotted owl population is a grim one on the surface. The solution at hand involves a lethal removal of the invasive species, and killing others voluntarily presents a large ethical issue frequently discussed in philosophy. On a general basis, most would argue that to kill another is morally wrong, but this opinion can change when you gain more information on the subject being terminated. In the case of the owls, the victim of the injection is not only an animal, which many separate from the moral issue of murder, but it is also an animal responsible for the widespread decrease of another species. The study states that rapid increase in the population of invasive barred animals was a primary reason for the decline in spotted owl populations. In some opinions, this alone would warrant moral justice, as the removal of the barred owl would be a preventative, protective measure in favor of the spotted owl. Implementations of this principle can even be seen in modern-day society when looking at policies like the death penalty. However, there is more going into the ethical analysis than simply the means of solution itself. When looking at the impact of the solution, one can consider if the removal of the owls would result in a product where the good outweighs the bad. Research has stated that as a result of the removal, there would be improvements in vital rates and population trends of spotted owls, and perhaps other threatened wildlife. This presents a situation where the number of groups being saved outnumber the number of groups being attacked. Furthermore, they also concluded that any alien predators present more of a threat than native predators, and can be responsible for detrimental impacts to not only the prey, but also the entire ecosystem at hand when looking at how their invasiveness competes with the native predators who already have a pre-existing role in the pyramid. With all this to consider, our group has concluded that based solely on the weighing of cost and benefit, that while it's an uncomfortable solution, it is one that is ethical because it is necessary to stop the detrimental impacts of the barred owl species and save the spotted owl, other endangered species, and the entire ecosystem.